Welcome to another Beyond Bitcoin Hangout. Today is Friday, February 5th, 2016. We're joined here as an open forum community that gets together every week to talk about the issues that are faced in crypto and in BitShares and focus on BitShares. With that said, we're joined today by Bytemaster of Cryptonomex, and he will be explaining and giving some updates as to what's going on in the BitShares environment, and we'll be opening it up to community discussions. Before we get started on this, I would like to say thank you to Solomon Solars and Cents for sponsoring this hangout by giving soul certs to everybody who is in attendance and signing the guest book. So with that said, we're going to be sending out a guest book link some point in time during this hangout. If you sign it, you will get onto the list that we will use to share drop onto those who attended. Of course, if you would like to join anonymously, we're not going to force you to do it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and read the little update that Solomon Solars and Cents would like to give for his sponsorship. He says here, "We've all wondered aloud or privately to ourselves how we are going to get BitShares technology past the crypto bubble and into a mainstream audience. In other words, how do we get this technology past the crypto world and into the real world of everyday people? The world no other cryptocurrency is influencing right now. Well, the new money project, a project powered by BitShares, just might have the answer. Tune in next Friday, February 12th, as I talk to the founder, Solomon Adakale, about his plan to get us there with new money. He will update us on where he is and how the community can get involved right away. As a token of good faith, he is share dropping one of the tokens that will be instrumental in bringing new money to a mainstream audience. The share drop will happen to everyone tuning in today and those who tune in next weekend. For more information about the new money project and these tokens, make sure to check out the new money thread in the general section on BitShares Talk. The thread will go up before next week's hangout. There you will find out a little bit more about the project and ways you can get involved. Thank you." And with that said, Bytemaster, I'm going to go ahead and first ask if it's okay if I hand it over to Data from the committee so he can provide a little committee update, and then we can get into your updates.
I'm interested in the committee update myself, so let's do it.
All right.
Good day, everybody. My name is Jonathan Bahai. I am known on the committee as bunkerchainlabs.com. I just wanted to let everybody know that the committee has been working very hard. There's been a lot of discussion going on and looking for feedback from everybody to have a holistic look at how our fee schedule is. And I just wanted to let everybody know that sometime next week, we plan to reach out to the community to get more input before we put forth our next proposal for fee adjustments. Now, this is going to be a very holistic approach. We've really gone through every single fee schedule to figure out the best balance for BitShares going forward and to have an outlook that's much more, I guess you could say, into the future. So I just want to let everybody know about that. The committee is doing great. We're getting much better at our discussions. And there has been some changes recently. We have a new member, I think, since the last time we gave an update. ABIT is now in the committee. And we have some new people who are looking to be on the committee who have contributed significantly, actually. You know him as Xerox. Xerox is now up for a committee bid. And he has actually been very helpful in this discussion that we're having with the fee schedules. He's been helping quite a bit with organizing and providing input to help other members to have meaningful discussion about everything. So I just want to let everyone know that sometime next week, we will be reaching out to the community at large so that we can get some final input before we put forth our proposal, which the committee members will be voting on.
And can you tell anybody the actual link or give them the link in here in the mumble to actually go look at this?
No, what I'm saying is that we will be releasing this sometime next week. We still are working on it. So this is just to let everybody know that sometime next week to look for that so that we can get everybody's input.
So this
Does
is not
Z-Rock
on
have
GitHub yet?
No, this is not something that's ready for. We're just not ready yet to present it to the community at large because we're still discussing a number of things. So for now, we just want to let everybody know that the community is working hard on this, that we can have things move forward quickly.
Awesome. Is there a way that community members can discuss it with you guys on the forums? Is there a post on the forums or anything like that?
There's already a number of threads going on right now, I think, as most people know. But there's any matters that have to do with the fee schedules and BitShares are always welcome to be brought to the committee. It's our job. If there's something you think could be optimized, just contact a committee member, and I'm sure that we'd be able to bring it to us. We're in the Telegram channels all the time. If you go to the general public Telegram channel, you'd certainly find committee members there. I'm always there, at least. And it's quite easy to, if you have issues to bring forward, if you don't want to make them, a big forum post or something like that. But
Sure.
that's we're pretty approachable. So.
Well, thank you very much, and I can say you guys are very approachable, because I butt in there quite often. So thank you very much for everything you guys are doing. And does anybody have any
now
questions
that you mentioned that,
comments? Yeah.
Sorry, I just want a reminder. All those out there who are proxy voters, some of you may not know that we actually invite proxy voters to join us in our Telegram channel where a lot of our discussion takes place. That really helps to allow you to see where everybody's position is and how things are progressing in a much more, I guess, because you're representing so many votes. It's kind of like being able to sit in the benches while Congress or something is having their debates. So basically, there are a couple of proxies that already take advantage of that, but I'm not sure if everybody knew about that. So just in case, if you are interested, you're welcome to join us. Just message me if you like, and I can send you an invite.
It'd be very helpful if the committee could get a little bit more formal with some note-taking on any decision that's made. I think you're probably posting a report anytime you do make a decision, but documenting all the discussion and basically if each committee member could make a statement.
Is that what the GitHub is for, or? Sorry.
Well, it would be interesting to do it on a GitHub basis, but if anytime the committee is making a decision or has something that's up for a proposal, I think every committee member should make a statement and have a position, as well as having, like, I guess it's almost like
it's a great idea.
The Supreme Court, where you've got the majority opinion and the dissenting opinion. And if we could have those two opinions captured clearly after all the discussion, and then have that made available through like Crypto Fresh or just readily available so it's transparent, it would really help explain to people how and why decisions are made, because sometimes people don't understand why we would adjust fees or change features or do anything, and with the right context, the decisions that get made usually make sense.
Yeah, we actually have taken that approach with the whole fee schedule in terms of how we're handling it now. With the help of Xerox, he actually went through every single fee schedule item and talked about why it should be this way. This is what's impacted by this fee and so forth. And since then, we've actually been very, very good at using GitHub in our discussions to be able to specifically give our inputs on each aspect. So I agree that it would be great at the end of all this, each member could do their own write-up and attach that to the decision so that everybody understands where their position was, who might have not agreed with the fee schedule that was set, and others that wanted it that way. It could be very helpful, but in the end, whatever we come up with ends up being the consensus for everyone to see. I do hope that we can have that documented. We are using GitHub as our means of creating a repository for all that.
Yeah, but also
just a question. It might be.
GitHub. You could probably use GitHub issues to discuss a lot of the proposals before you get into a formal document on GitHub.
That's exactly what we're doing. Well, we're using inlines mostly now. We try to use issues, but inlines kind of made it easier when we're discussing so many things at once.
Okay.
Out of curiosity, just a thought here. Maybe it's a bad idea, but you vote on the blockchain essentially through this, right? So whenever you're voting individually as committee members, would it be possible to put in a memo about the notes for that individual committee member and why they made their decision? And then it could be recorded and left on the blockchain and then just pulled off.
You could do such a thing with a custom operation. It would require some work. There are no memos in vote operations, but that doesn't mean you can't bundle it in a transaction that includes extra data through a custom operation. It would be interesting to have the statements actually logged in the blockchain, but I don't know the priority that makes because that's time and money. So maybe that's something we can do after BitShares regains its proper standing on CoinMarketCap.
Out of curiosity, I mean, worker proposals at this point, what do you think having that done would cost?
I don't know. I'd have to look into what all is actually required. It's possible to get it into the blockchain, probably for $1,000, $2,000. We'd have to update the user interface to enter the data, and then construct a custom operation and publish it. So it's not too much work to get it published. The trick, of course, is fetching the data from the blockchain and doing something with it that's useful. And that would take a little bit more. But don't hold me to any of these numbers. I'm just making broad estimates.
Don't you live inside the BitShares blockchain though? I mean, you should know all of this.
You would think so, but I'll confess that the project is bigger than any one person can fully comprehend. There are a lot of moving parts.
Roger that. Well, all joking aside, would you like to get started with your updates, or do we have anybody who would like to speak up before we do that? All right, Bytemaster, looks like it's all in your hands, buddy.
All right. So this week, James Calfee and Ben have made additional progress on the stealth feature. I believe the everything from the management account that's doing all the voting on the stealth fees to the buyback has been implemented at the blockchain level. The JavaScript side of the equation is actually transferring to blind and doing blind transfers. I've been working a lot with James this week on helping understand the details of that. We've made some progress in integrating the new, I guess, wallet storage system that we're using to keep track of wallet data that abstracts out the difference between storing the wallet locally and storing it on the server. So we really wanted to make sure that we had backups working well as part of the stealth rollout. Because if you lose track of a transfer receipt, you can lose track of your balance. And it's not like BitShares where you've got one key and as long as you back it up once, you're good forever. When you're doing this confidential stuff, you need to be much more on top of making backups every time you receive funds. So we're integrating that in there. It's looking good. I've asked James if he thinks things can be done in the next 2 weeks, and he's optimistic that will be the case. So we'll be working with Ben to roll out a hard fork that has the new features in it. And that hard fork date will probably be about 2 weeks from now. And we're going to hard fork the blockchain with or without the GUI updates, just because that part of it is ready and that takes the most coordination. The GUI updates can then come out as they get finished. But overall, steady progress. The guys are going as fast as they can on the stealth, and I'm pretty happy with what they've done. Other than that, I guess I'll take some questions.
Bytemaster, will the hard fork change the way the CLI stealth works currently?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Real quick, when you were talking a little bit about the nodes, the host that host the wallet.
Yes.
Am I cutting out to you guys?
No.
Okay, when you're talking about this, is this just with respect to stealth transactions?
Correct.
Or is this with respect? Okay, so whenever you receive stealth transactions, you have to back it up.
Correct. In the wallet that we're putting together, we'll automatically back it up to the server if you enable that feature.
Got you. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Does anybody else have any questions or comments regarding this?
I have a quick question. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear me. My mumble's been acting up this morning, but Bytemaster.
Very well, Crypto.
Okay, awesome. Bytemaster, you mentioned a couple of weeks ago about like a scheme, so to speak, for dividend payments that was new and superior to the buyback scheme. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about that, what exactly it would be. And then I guess I don't know if I understood correctly, but for the feedback to assets, that's just going to be the same buyback mechanism type thing that we use for the makeshift way that dividend payments are paid right now, right? There's not going to be any new dividend payment system worked into the FBAs?
Correct. It's going to use the buyback as we've always done. The new dividend system is based on the idea if you separate out the currency in which people are paid from the shares that are being tracked. So imagine you've got an account that's accumulating a bunch of money. Anytime there's a dividend payment, a global account, not individual account, a global account that all dividend payments go into this account. At any time, a user can convert their equity. So if they own 1% of the user issued asset or the fee-backed asset or whatever, they could convert that to 1% of the balance of the pool. Now, the pool will just continue accumulating. And when they do the conversion, you're reducing the supply and reducing the pool proportionally. So under that model, it's slightly different from buyback. When you do a buyback, you're taking the entire pool and auction it off to the highest bidder, leaving the pool empty after every buyback. Under this model, the stakeholders accrue equity in a growing pool, but when they cash out, they only get to cash out their cut of what happened in the past. So it's like a company. Everyone's got shares in the company, and the company's got a bank account. All the profits go into the company's bank account. At any time, a shareholder can turn in their shares and get their percentage of the company's bank account. That's probably a more concise analogy of how it works. Under such a system, rather than getting your dividends distributed to you when they're paid, you have the right to claim your dividends at any point in time.
Did that answer your question, Crypto, or are you not there, not being able to be heard right now?
Yeah, I'm sure it was very interesting, and I can't wait to listen to it in the recorded version that I listen to after this show.
Okay. Okay, my apologies.
Nope, it's not you, Fuzzy. It's there's some bugs with Mumble that apparently are never going to be
Yeah.
fixed.
And they just come and go, and they're for different systems.
So,
Anybody else have any? Oh,
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry about my lister.
I'd like to have a discussion. That's everyone's favorite discussion. But
Yeah.
could we imagine a scenario where the blockchain had no fees at all, and instead all accounts were rate limited, proportional to their balance?
What do you mean rate limited? As far as
viewing your BitShares as owning a percentage of the available network capacity, and so someone who owns 1% of the BitShares could consume 1% of the network capacity.
so kind of like miners and mining pools.
Completely unrelated to that.
You're talking about like the network capacity, as far as what would somebody get for having 1% of the network capacity? Would they be able to change the fees according to what? Service.
There are no fees. Imagine a system where if you own 1%, you can consume 1% of every block, worst case.
What can you do with that?
Sounds like it would incentivize service providers to use it.
Think of it another way. Imagine it's everyone's doing timeshare on the blockchain space, and everyone who owns shares can consume some of the blockchain space when when they want to do a transaction. And with this method, no one will be able to flood the network because they can consume their allotted allocation of the bandwidth. But the average user, not everyone wants to use the network at the same time. So it's kind of, the network can support regular users transacting more or less whenever they want. The only thing it won't allow you to do is to flood the network with a large amount. So
How would fees be? I mean, how would the profitability be found there?
Profitability comes from network effect.
Gotcha.
More than anything else. The tiny little amounts that we're collecting in fees are insignificant to lost network effect and or complexity.
How do witnesses get paid?
Same way they do now with the dilution.
But it would always dilute instead of burning it any.
Yes, we're effectively recognizing the fact that we could create an exchange that had no fees, yet still had no abuse, and was completely decentralized. And then when people come and use the exchange, if we wanted to have some fees on market orders and that be our only fee source, we could do that. Versus right now, we have people saying, hey, I don't want to build on your exchange because people don't like paying a fraction of a cent to cancel their order.
What would happen if a group of whales got together to try and absorb a lot of bandwidth? Would that be able to lock out people with very small amounts of shares in the network from transacting, or would it slow them down?
There are algorithms that we can use to make sure that people who transact or who haven't transacted in a while have more weight. Basically, you make it proportional to coin days accumulated. So
Nice.
someone with a small balance that doesn't transact but once a week would be like someone with 1/7 of the balance transacting every day.
Makes sense.
It's an
So
interesting
the more
idea.
you use it, the less priority you have.
Correct. And you can do certain things like penalizing people for use during high loads and automatic scaling of the fee. So it's not a fixed thing. The goal here would be to create a system that has lower costs in terms of committee oversight, allows you to advertise free. Right? Nothing in life is really free. Anything that's advertised as free is fundamentally rate limited.
It's a powerful incentivizer.
It allows people to use the network, and we don't have to put fees in people's face all the time.
By the way, what role would the committee have in a feeless scheme like this?
Controlling block size, block intervals, maintenance intervals, various other
the mechanics per se.
mechanics. Committee members would make far less frequent discussion. If you wanted to change market fees, that might be the only fee you would discuss. But such a system would get BitShares one step closer to having the same user experience as a centralized exchange.
Would this be mostly for transactions? For example, creating an asset is still going to cost a fee, right?
True. Anything that's scarce like that, so I guess one is bandwidth, which is transient, and the other is real estate, which is permanent. So account names and asset symbols would still have fees associated with them.
Would the committee account still be potentially adjusting smart coin parameters to be collecting income off trade fees?
Yes.
And what does this do to the upcoming stealth feature? I mean, obviously, this isn't going to happen at the time frame that stealth is introduced, but envisioning in the future, how would that impact situations like stealth?
So stealth is something where the network doesn't know the balance, so a fee still has to be charged. Excuse me. So if a fee still has to be, so there, I guess it wouldn't eliminate all fees, but it would eliminate the majority of fees that people are complaining about.
And I guess the other question is, how does it impact the registration incentives referral program? And most likely it wouldn't affect that at all, other than the fact that that fees is where it collects its incentives. So that would impact the referral program.
Correct. So right now the referral program is set up to be based on fees, a percentage of future fees. So that creates incentive to sign up new users. Now we could still have fees, but we can choose where and when and how much to charge fees, versus right now we have to charge fees on absolutely everything in order to prevent spam. So I guess look at it as an alternative minimum fee to prevent spam, allowing the committee to pick and choose where you actually want to charge users and where you don't want to charge users. So there's the new proposal for percentage-based transfer fees that I think has been approved and is going through that ABIT's working on. I think that charging people for transfers proportional to the value of the transfer is great. I think for low value transfers, you can get rid of the minimum because we have an alternative way of charging people for small amounts. So there would have to be no minimum fee for the percentage-based transfer, which would leave us only with percentage plus maximum. It gives us more options in our toolbox and can allow micropayments as long as you don't flood the network with them and things like that.
Does that answer the question?
Fee-backed assets would also be affected, I guess, in the same way that stealth is.
Yeah.
Correct. So someone says a big whale will continuously flood the network. Well, there's two things here. One, the network will target a fraction of the available capacity. So if we're able to do 1,000 transactions per second, anything over 100 transactions per second will start to have very high fees. Basically, will consume a user's transaction power very rapidly. So a whale who attempts to flood will quickly get rate limited without rate limiting the smaller parties who transact less frequently. Whale transacting constantly has power proportional to their stake as time approaches zero. But someone who transacts only once a week, well, they've got 7 times the transaction power because when they do transact, because they didn't transact for an entire week. So if a whale attempts to save their transaction power for a year and then flood the network all at once, it also rapidly deplete. So that there are algorithms available to prevent abuse. Effectively, if the network's fully loaded, everyone gets to transact proportional to their stake. So someone who has 1% of stake can transact 1% of the time.
So the bandwidth then is basically a function of magnitude versus time, or magnitude and time together.
Correct. So a whale would not be able to consume every single block because non-whales save up until they get priority over a whale, and then they go down. So it's kind of like, I guess if you use the mining analogy, the low power miners periodically get a chance to produce a block. And a high power miner, they might produce more frequently, but the ratio is always proportional to our actual stake. So there's things we can do here. I'm just throwing it out as ways that we can reduce market order fees, order placing and canceling fees.
It seems like there's a strong analogy between the use of bandwidth on the network, a satellite provider network or whatever, any bandwidth type of thing. The schemes have been devised of all types to manage that. And it seems like there's a lot we could take advantage of in terms of those models.
Bytemaster?
Yes, there are lots of systems out there that do this type of thing. And I really like the timeshare analogy. You get a bunch of people, they all go in for a timeshare on a condo, right? There's 52 weekends a year, and there's 52 people. They can freely pick any weekend as long as there's no conflict. But as soon as there is a conflict, then it basically starts a bidding war where people get less network time if they tried to go on a holiday weekend. So they get less time in the timeshare because they went when it was busy, which encourages people to utilize their time. But at the same time, with a timeshare, if it was empty one week, well, there's no way to go back in time and reclaim that week in a future week. So there's algorithms and incentive programs to do that. So rather than viewing it as like a customer coming and paying the network for a service, view it as the stakeholders are owners in the network, and they can utilize the network for free. Like, we're all part of the club. We can all use the club for free, proportional to our equity in the club. And then if we would like to have more transactions, we can increase capacity. We can add new wings to our club so we can support more users. And then we can all transact more frequently. That's the model. So instead of viewing it as we're charging someone to use us, we say, no, the owners of the system can use the system for free, but only to the extent that they own it.
Interesting. And then after that point, there would be transaction fees.
Right. Even in clubs where things are free, you still charge for things like drinks, right? There are certain certain aspects of things that have to be charged. Premium names, trading fees. It still has to cover its expenses somehow and make money, but we can choose where we want to make money and what we want to have be complementary.
Well, that sounds, at least on the surface, to be beautiful. Like an elegant solution. Now, in practice, is this something we could try on the testnet, or would it be something that it really wouldn't matter if we tried on the testnet?
This is something that should be tested on a testnet, yes.
Now, would the economic incentives still be aligned on the testnet? Do you think that might change the outcome a little bit?
It should work perfectly on any blockchain with any valuation without having to worry about spamming.
Dang, you just came in and hit us across the head with this. I mean, I've seen a couple things on the forums that you've been kind of go in that direction a little bit, but wow.
Bytemaster, is there
Something to think about. Anybody have thoughts?
Yes, Bytemaster, is there some flexibility being written into the code as to how stealth fees are charged? Because if it's just 3 times the regular fee, then that cuts out all the income for the stealth.
But would it?
The stealth fees are being set by the management account for the stealth asset. The committee has no say over the stealth fees.
And that's totally flexible. They can charge, the committee can charge. I mean, the management account can charge whatever it wants in any format, like in BitUSD or in BitShares or whatever.
It charges things in BitShares. That's the only asset that fees can be paid in. If there's a fee pool available, it will convert through the fee pool into BitShares. The network is guaranteed 20% of whatever fee is charged, which means the blockchain automatically profits 20% off of all stealth that is actually utilized. And the incentives are aligned for the management account to price things to maximize revenue for themselves, which will simultaneously maximize revenue for the blockchain. Stealth is a feature that, like I said earlier, cannot be rate limited. There must be transaction fees because we don't know what the balance is or how long it's been there. And so there's no way to rate limit stealth transfers. So that's an example of something that you'll have to still pay a fee for. But the people who care about stealth and are willing to go through that, they won't mind paying a fee. They know what they're paying for. They know what they're getting. What we want to do is eliminate fees that people do mind paying because no one else makes them pay to place an order.
Now, is this the case for only stealth or for any project that has feature-based or fee-based assets that they get to manage this?
Any fee-backed asset, the way I would see things going in the future is the network will always, at the very least, enforce the rationing to the extent that it knows the accounts involved in the transaction. But any additional fees will be subject.
You cut out for anyone else?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So people can buy and trade and do whatever they want to do in the LSMR prediction market, but they, all the individual actions. We're basically giving fee-backed assets more power. We're telling businesses, look, your users can use the blockchain for free if they've got some BitShares. And as long as you pre-fund their account with a minimum number of BitShares, they'll be able to earn the right to transact at some rate. And that gives people sort of this idea, do you want to transact once a week? Then you need to maintain this minimum balance. You want to transact every day? This minimum balance. You want to transact 1,000 times a day to run a bot, then you're going to have a larger stake. So there's still a fee being charged here, but the fee is not in burning your BTS. It's in holding your BTS on the network.
Yeah, locking it away.
Yeah, except it's sort of retroactive. So it's how long did you hold it in the past? So you're not even giving up liquidity. It's just a simple question of, how long have you been committed to the network? Thank you. You can transact with the network. It's a type a fee that people don't feel like they're paying anything for, because they automatically earn the right to transact just by holding. And the normal user should be able to transact anytime they want, because their stake will be, even a small stake of $5 should earn enough transaction power to go to and from exchanges, to pay people periodically. So they don't feel like they're being charged anything. And it's sort of like micropayments. The cost, the mental load, the mental cost of a transaction is actually larger than the micropayment. Well, that's sort of the problem we have with fees. The mental cost, or the appearance of this fraction of a cent, is enough to send some community members crazy. Even though the traders might say, well, a fraction of a cent is nothing. Or even if I update it 1,000 times a day, I'm paying less than $1 a day in fees. It's still cheaper than the fees on the centralized exchange. It just, the way you present the fee impacts everything dramatically.
Yeah, and Riverhead says here it's an opportunity cost, which we can see from the current banking systems model. They make bank off of it. No, sorry for the pun. But with all seriousness, that's how they're effectively doing something very similar in terms of the opportunity cost. People don't seem to recognize that on a large scale, kind of like they do seeing a 1 cent fee in their face.
So the only question we have to remain is, how do we continue to incentivize user acquisition? So there's still fees. So allocating a percentage of market fees, or trading BTS against other things, to the referral program would probably be the most effective way of rewarding people who refer people to trade on BitShares. Using percentage-based transfer fees can continue to maintain that. So I really like percentage-based transfer fees with a maximum, and market fees being the only two fees, and stealth fees. But stealth fees can't be used in the referral program. But as far as the referral program goes, I guess account names, asset registration, and market trading and transfers can all continue to fund that. But everything else we're doing doesn't need that. You can update your collateral position without paying a fee, for example. Those would completely change the field of blockchain from a user's perspective.
Yes, definitely. It's a very interesting concept, and I cannot say that I thought of it.
So let's talk about what
SX
makes a cryptocurrency grow in value to answer.
go unvalued?
Grow in value. A cryptocurrency is valued based on the network effect. Network effect is the number of people holding it times the length of time that they hold it. As the length of time someone holds a currency is known as the velocity of money. If you get a currency and you immediately sell it, that's considered a very high velocity money. Hyperinflation is when velocity goes to infinity. And then deflation is when price deflation is when velocity slows way down. So, stated another way, slowing the velocity represents an increase in steady state demand. It's taking the currency off of the market, which causes the people who want to get in to bid it up in order to encourage people to transfer it to them. So We want to attract users who will hold their wealth in the system. So there's that. The other aspect that gives a cryptocurrency money is liquidity. Litecoin, Dogecoin are primarily successful because of the large amount of liquidity that they provide, which allows them to be transferred as hedging between exchanges. And there's various things people are using it for, but liquidity is very important. I think that we can, by incentivizing liquidity within our markets, it can grow the value of BitShares and BitUSD and BitCNY as an alternative to things like Dogecoin and Litecoin. And liquidity is very important. In fact, let's just look at it from a high-level perspective. Paying 1% of the market cap every year for liquidity will likely add more than 1% of value to the market cap. So that's how important liquidity is to the parties involved. People don't like to buy an asset that they aren't confident that they can get out of in a timely manner and at a price close to what they paid for it. The transaction costs are dominated by market spread. So anything you do to minimize market spread is also reducing transaction fees, more or less. So yes, there's. I would suggest that we can take the ideas of the maker proposal, where we allocate a percentage of future trading fees, but at the same time we can use the same accounting measure to distribute payment from a worker to fund liquidity using the same algorithm. The goal is to have an algorithm that cannot be gamed by people self-trading. But that's solvable. So I would suggest that we pick, we can have a worker for each USD worker, a Y worker, a gold, a silver worker, and as the stakeholders vote, they can vote to fund the budget to reward the liquidity providers in each of those markets against BTS. And if we do that, you'll find lots of people will come in and leave orders on the books, right? So you need to pay for what you want. If we want lots of orders on the books that are very deep and very close to the price feed, or very narrow spread, we got to reward or incentivize that, and we can do so with a fixed budget. So rather than paying people interest or anything that's an unbounded amount of inflation, you auction it off, kind of like Bitcoin auctions off block rewards for hash power. You get whatever amount of liquidity you can fund for a fixed amount. That minimizes the cost risk to the blockchain, and it can be funded by worker proposals to fund that liquidity. But at the end of the day, it'll cause more people to enter the market, to place orders on the books, just so that it can earn the interest. And the result of the liquidity is to increase the value of both BitUSD and BitShares. More people will be willing to go short in a market that's highly liquid. So those are two things that I've been thinking about for BitShares. Reducing the fees.
Have you thought of the numbers at all?
Well, BitShares has a hard inflation cap in terms of 5 BTS per second is the maximum. So we could allocate that budget. I don't want to change that part of the social consensus for anything, because changing that would, no matter how beneficial it might be to say, well, we should inflate so much to do X, Y, and Z, it's just not worth it in terms of changing the deal on what the inflation rates and what the users expect. So bottom line is all this stuff would have to be funded through the worker proposal system and voted to make happen. So
well, this is a kind of along the same lines, because I remember there was some talk about bond markets, and I wanted to bring this question in real quick for Mikado before because he's been asking it for the past 2 weeks, apparently. He says here, 2 weeks ago, I asked Dan if he had an idea about the cost of bond markets. He said he would need some time because it's something complex. Did he have any time to give it a thought, and does he have an idea now or a rough estimate?
I've been thinking about it periodically. I obviously don't spend whole days thinking about it, but sometimes when I'm just sitting there thinking, I think about how can I do a bond market, and the challenge with the bond market is always making sure that you can, I think I addressed this last week, but maybe I'm wrong, that all positions can be covered. It adds an increased cost on every order matched in the market. So
I think what he was wondering, though, is like a rough estimate on the actual cost.
The cost to development.
Yeah, like, because you did discuss this a little bit, but you said it was kind of like complex, so you weren't sure how much it would be able to cost, how much it would cost.
Correct. I don't know how much it would cost. I haven't broken it down to fully specify the features. I'd say the progress that has been made on that front is, I believe it is possible to do now, and to do in a way that is computationally reasonable. It'll primarily be, it would limit lending to the depth of the market. But that's a reasonable thing to do, particularly in a decentralized market. So pursuing that further, it's a lower priority. I've been more concerned with solving the problems with respect to fees and liquidity. And so that's where a lot of my thoughts have been.
This is a good segue into what you're saying here, because whenever I was reading this, I was thinking, would bond markets be a priority over this type of fee system and checking this system out?
I think bond markets are a niche market that benefit from increased liquidity and lower market fees that are more, or no market fees, as far as order placement and cancel fees.
So something very,
yes,
very positive, but something that you think it'd be better to hold off for a while on.
Well, I think bond market is like the second story of the house. You still have to get the foundation and first story put in place first, and the foundation is a liquid market with appropriate fees. And once you've got that foundation, market liquidity in turn will increase the order book depth, which will increase the lending capacity of the network. So if you don't have a lot of market depth, then the total amount of debt, you can't have more debt in the bond market than can be covered with the current or active order book. So we need to grow the order books before we can have a successful blog market.
Yeah, we don't want to get the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Correct.
This is a very interesting and engaged discussion. I would like to have a post where we can discuss the positives and negatives aspects to this. If there isn't one already. If there is one already, please tell me.
There isn't that I'm aware of.
What's kind of related to this is the discussion about should we drop depause or pause from the marketing. I mean, it's kind of related. I mean, obviously you're thinking in kind of high level terms, Bytemaster, with regard to fees, schedules, and the marketing of BitShares to increase market cap. Could you fold that into the discussion a little bit and see where that has led you to think?
Right. So. The benefits of proof of work blog post I did a while back has really been part of my trying to get into the mindset of all the Bitcoin people who see proof of work as the only way for things to actually work. And so I've been trolling the different forums, the discussions, and the blog posts talking about why proof of work is the only way. And what I realized is that most people attacking proof of stake are attacking a straw man. Or if they're not attacking a straw man, they're attacking a particular version of proof of stake that doesn't apply to Next or BitShares. And when they attack...
And how does this argument generally go?
Well, it's usually some variation of the nothing at stake attack, or the imagine data security nodes sitting there in his bunker without any other communication, only looking at the input coming into him through messages, trying to figure out what the consensus is. There's various things, but it all boils down to whether or not a consensus can actually be reached, and whether or not it's possible to forge an alternative ledger. We know through experience that BitShares has been working, Next has been working. We know these systems work in practice. But people are attacking the PureCoin style proof of stake, where you're mining with your hash power and so on. And basically, proof of stake, there are significant problems with the proof of stake that they're attacking, but when we adopt the proof of stake mantle, people are painting us with the same brush without looking any closer. The goal of the post was to brainstorm if there's a better terminology for what we have, not so much just for marketing purposes, but for our own understanding of what we have created. If the names you give something are very powerful, now calling it shares versus coins, the underlying technology is the same, but the impact of the way you think about the problem changes completely. So I was looking for a way of describing our consensus approach without using the words proof of stake.
Have you come to any conclusions from that discussion?
I haven't drawn any conclusions. Some people have offered proof of vote, proof of participation. I don't know. There's various things in there that people propose. I haven't read the thread to see what all the latest is since I made the post. But
one thing that comes to mind with that is the whole proof of is where I think like proof of vote is not really that's what substantiates the network. That's a component of it. That's where Bitcoin is very powerful in its proof of work, because the algorithm for mining is the work, and it's the proof. It's mathematical proof. So when you start using the term proof of something, it can kind of it gets a little bit weird in my view that you would use that term like for proof of vote. Doesn't make a lot of sense in my view.
That's a powerful insight. Proof of is a misnomer. What we really have is proof of consensus. Basically, everyone's signed off on it, and therefore I've got proof that everyone agreed. That's, rather than trying to infer consensus, I've proved there's consensus. We've got 51%. So the combination of transaction as proof of stake is direct proof of consensus, and the delegates is indirect proof of consensus. But
if we call it Deepak, we might get into trouble with some of the music guys. Decentralized proof of consensus.
Proof of witness. There we go. POW.
That would be good. Right now in an election year, POW would be great. Yeah, sure.
Proof of work. Proof of witness.
Yeah.
Prisoner of war. All three.
All three of them. Let's keep the last one out. Unless they're going to be our witnesses.
So what we really have, the arguments against proof of stake, that's all been debunked. The goal is to figure out a way of describing it in a way that gets past people's knee-jerk reactions. Lots of people have dismissed anything but
POW.
proof of work. And they're not engaging their rational mind long enough to consider alternatives. And we all do this every single day in every area of our life, right? We adopt a belief and we don't even consider anything that's contrary to the belief because we've already ruled it out. And we have to make these simplifications in order to actually live. An example of places where I've done that is the belief that inflation is bad and there should never be any dilution under any circumstances. That's a lot of people hold that belief. We still have that belief very strongly, even within the BitShares community.
Bitcoin set that precedent.
But at the same time, Bitcoin is inflating.
How is Bitcoin inflating? Because the total number of coins is staying the same. That's my understanding. Am I wrong?
Well, if by that measure, BitShares isn't inflating either. The total number of coins isn't changing and hasn't changed since we did the merger.
Well, then that's how I measure inflation. Where is that an incorrect assessment of what inflation is?
Depends on what you call the currency supply. Is it the liquid supply or the potential supply? But that's an example where, depending on how you look at it, there's rational arguments that don't violate property rights and are completely consistent with a nonviolent worldview and with Austrian economics and everything that I understand about what makes for a good money as a country and whatnot. But when we don't engage our rational thought because we dismiss things, we lose opportunities. And we are all, each and every day, facing this dilemma. So recognizing that when you're dealing with other people, you don't win them over by being rational first. You have to have a rational argument in the end. But in order to get through their defenses, you need to be sneaky. You have to sneak in so that they're engage their brain long enough to hear your rational argument, and then you can persuade them. And that's the challenge. And so when we have a message like proof of stake, it's we're trying to butt up against the hard wall we need to find a softer way to enter the discussion that causes them to start thinking and evaluating what we're actually saying.
So how about we break out of the stereotype proof of and call it witness certified?
Well, there's if you're going to really address the whole naming of the consensus algorithm, I think there's going to be a problem with that, just because people are going to say there's nothing different with the way BitShares operates. It's still the same old proof of stake, the same old distributed proof of stake. That's what the allegation will be if we came up with another buzzword to describe it. That's what I think we would get as pushback.
We've been playing with the idea of proof of effort, which allows the individual to see effort in their own eyes. It could be proof of work, mining a coin. It could be proof of having to earn the money to buy the Bitcoin in the first place, from which their stake would render their power. And that's sort of, it's also our attempt to capture productivity. That's going to be the basis of the currency we envision. So what's a nice way of saying productivity? And keeping productivity away from the stereotype of building Fords and Chevys and airplanes to maybe creating art. That's all productivity. So we can expand the definition of productivity by using a word like effort, and that is I think that's the where we're going to go. And I'm wondering if that has any credence in this discussion.
I think sounds better. Proof of productivity sounds like a better buzzword to me.
I think proof of contribution. Right. So this is what sort of changed my view of things. You're trying to build something. So everyone goes and brings what they have and they put it in the pot. The more things you have that you put in the pot, bigger the thing that you're building is collectively. And because of network effects, 1 + 1 is not equal 2, it equals 3. Right? So we want to encourage people to bring what they have, whether it's money or effort, and make contributions to the community. And we want to recognize everyone who's made a contribution to the community proportional to their contribution. And this is the foundation of growing a fair community. The alternative is to say, we've got this pot, and we want people to contribute to the pot without getting any ownership in the pot. With that model, that's like a business that's trying to sell a product. When you sell a product, you give a service, they give you the money goes into the pot. That's a business. But early on, all businesses start out as the couple founders. You get someone with some money, they contribute some capital, and the pot's growing. So there's a difference depending on what stage you're in. And the no dilution phase of a currency applies primarily when the pot is so big that any individual contribution is infinitesimally small. That you might as well not even give it to them. It doesn't matter anymore.
That's the problem that Curiosity solves.
Please go ahead.
What's that?
Hey, can you explain a little bit further, Dan?
Well, Curiosity is converting somebody's resume into cryptography, turning it into a key. And, that key can open and close doors theoretically. And the resume is actually an account of future productivity. This is what I can do. This is what I intend to do. And likewise, money itself, debt is a form of future productivity as well. So when you have two currencies backed by the same underlying asset, they should be convertible. And that's the underlying thesis. But it does put people it helps them define what contribution can they make, did they make, have they made, do they intend to make in a community, and then it helps them find each other algorithmically. So by contributing your curiosity to a network, you are in fact contributing your intentions to behave in that network or contribute to that network.
Exactly. So right along this point is allowing people to earn their way in. So people mentioned with like getting network effect with BitUSD, the more people that can earn the currency, the faster the system will grow. So those are some stuff that was a community BitShares should think about how to encourage and promote. One way that people can earn it would be to provide liquidity in the markets. That's something we can actually measure and reward proportionally. So that's a good candidate that allows anyone to participate. But there are other things we can do to reward people for participating, allow people to earn their way into the BitShares community. Currently, unless you're a worker or a witness, you can only buy your way into our community. And that is a major slowdown on our network effect.
And this is a reason why I really like the referral program as well, and what Ken Code is doing, because they're going to have this wallet is going to be available in multiple languages. And some of the places where we're going to get the most adoption, I believe, are going to be the mobile market and, second and third world countries, because people can work for BitShares and BitUSD at a lower rate and still get more money than they would in their local economy. Just a thought. Well, we're sitting at about an hour and 15 minutes. Is there anything that is pressing that anybody feels that we have not covered, that we need to cover? Fuzzy, you didn't ask my question and it should have been asked in a certain location. Any of this?
I think BitShares is getting a little too simplified. We need something to make it more complicated.
You're being a smarty. Grandpa always says better than being a dumb one.
I'd like to thank everyone for showing up today. It's an honor to meet with you all every week. This Mumble session is the core of the BitShares community, and each and every one of you is making a huge difference for BitShares. And I think that together we can take BitShares to the moon. We can make the necessary changes. We can come up with innovative ideas. I really like the proof of weighted approval description, because that's sort of what we have. So there's lots of good feedback. I really appreciate the committee reports. Those are very good. So I would ask that this week you all consider the option of eliminating fees through transaction rationing based on stake. If that is something that the witnesses and the committee members would like to see happen and get funded within BitShares, I think it would be a high priority. And I would also like you all to review the worker proposals that can fund liquidity providers in the markets as a way of bootstrapping liquidity within BitShares. And if there is broad consensus among the committee and the witnesses, we can take the proposal directly to the shareholders to get funded, and we will put together an estimate of what it will cost to implement something like that, because I think it would have a dramatic impact on the future of BitShares if we got those two things in there.
Well, I want to thank you as well for the entire community, Bytemaster, because the cool thing about these hangouts and this open forum is that you come here and you're transparent about a lot of your ideas, about a lot of stuff that other people would just hold close to their chest. And when we're talking about a decentralized movement, that's, that enables a lot of innovation from other people, because I forget, I think it was a TED Talk where they were talking when ideas mate and have babies. So you never know what idea you might put out might not end up in somebody else's mind being activated and manifested in exact that way, but they might take something that you taught them or told them about and change it and turn it into something that ends up becoming the viral thing that makes BitShares go to the moon. So it's awesome that all of you guys participate, and thank you for Bytemaster, and thank you for all of you guys, because it's priceless. You're right. Everybody joining here and being a part of this is priceless.